Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm supposed to say good afternoon because I've been doing most of my interviews in the afternoon. Good morning. And for those who are watching us from different time zones, good evening or good afternoon, wherever you may be. And for those who have seen us for the first time, my name is Marilyn. I'm the CEO and founder of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited, or CTS, Asia's most trusted training and business solutions partner. We create programs that adds value and impact for leaders to stay relevant, adapt to the next normal, and ensure performance of a hybrid team. And our mission is to be able to inspire sustainable transformation by empowering leaders through customized learning solutions that drives outcomes and impact. We have served over 4,500 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, Ayala Group, Meralco, Aboitiz Power, Seda Hotel, Shell, and many more. And today, it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Nina Teruel. Um, she is a multidimensional catalyst and leader who has built up almost 25 years of high impact, multidisciplinary experience in the private, public, technology, and media nonprofit, and as well as education sector. She is the founder and CEO of Imaginable Impact, thought leaders, published author, and has been a TEDx speaker and organizer. She's also one of the top 100 Filipino women on LinkedIn, and that's why I knew her as well. And a finalist of the Global Startup Mentor Awards for South and Southeast Asia 2022. And she is a highly sought after keynote speaker, conference panelist, and startup mentor, and was the first Filipina as well to speak at the Women Leading Change program of the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership. And without so much further ado, I'd like to invite her. Hi, Nina.
Hello, Marilyn, and to everybody who's watching.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know you're outside of your office right now, doing your ocular. So I really appreciate you taking time to have this very important conversation around leadership. I have introduced you, and I hope I gave a bit of justice on what you have done in the past. So if
Thank
you'd
you.
like to add anything more, please feel free to do so within like 2 to 3 minutes to let us know. Um, the like if there's anything that you'd like to add on what you do, your experience, especially around your experience around the leadership and transformation.
Yes, of course, and thank you for the opportunity. So, perhaps I'll share a bit more about Imaginable Impact, my new venture. It's quite new. We're only turning 8 months, but kind of like a baby. It's a discovery period for us. It's a really exciting time, and Imaginable Impact is what we call an inclusion studio. So, what does that mean? Of course, by the word inclusion, we focus our energies, and we're on a mission to co-create a more equitable and sustainable and inclusive world. And I'll be able to share later, our perspective on what diversity, equity, and inclusion mean, and why we're talking about feminine leadership in the context of transformation. So our work is very much focused on creating safe spaces for conversation, collaboration, and action, so that companies, brands, organizations, and even individuals, right, will be able to create those safe spaces, because safe spaces also enable innovation, right, transformation, all of the things that allow us to future proof ourselves. But we call ourselves an inclusion studio, which means
Mhm.
we also create and design our own products and services and programs that we offer to partners and clients. Of course, we also do consulting and bespoke arrangements, but we currently have some signature programs that we've developed that we also offer to partners. So the three areas we work in would be women empowerment, and specifically women empowerment in the workplace and for women entrepreneurs and founders. And we have a brand called Found Her for that. And then the second is we have a brand that tackles diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging in the workplace. That's called Play Day. It's PLAY. So Play Day, but the day is DEI, right? And
Yeah.
have a service that focuses on impact communications, helping brands and organizations tell their own stories, right? Engage and communicate more authentically with their stakeholders. So that's what we do. And I know there's a lot more that we will be talking about as we talk about leadership and transformation with Marilyn.
Wow, thank you so much for introducing this imaginable impact with us. And I really appreciate it because you've mentioned a lot of important things, especially around leadership in the work that you do, right? From women empowerment, especially at the workplace, as you've mentioned, as well as being able to teach them how to tell story, how to influence, how to communicate
Mm,
with impact, right? And it's very important, especially for leaders like us, and especially
mm,
that in our culture here in Asia, right, where like a lot of the women are like quite hesitant to like
mm.
speak up, right? So
Yes.
it's really a great initiative then. So thank you for sharing that with us. And to start our conversation around leadership and transformation, although we have like you already have made mention a bit of that, and the theme that we will be talking about more on this conversation, we've mentioned as well DNI, and that reminds me as well like how like humans are actually like s- always looking forward to that care, to that love, and of course the feeling
Mm-hmm.
of belonging, which is very important around that space. And it's not a trend word, a buzzword, but it's really so much of like satisfying that need that humans do have, right? So like I just wanted to understand from you. I mean, you've mentioned the work that you're doing right now, and so it got me curious. Who are your influencers? What's your favorite leadership style, if you do have any? And what leads you to how you define leadership actually?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. So three questions there. So I'll answer the first in terms of who are my leadership influences.
Mhm,
To be honest, I think a lot of the leadership influences that I now look up to have really been around me. Of course, in the family, it's kind of weird because I grew up in a very unusual family situation for somebody back in the 80s. So I grew up
mhm,
in a mostly single parent household. So my mom was able to model for me what it was like to be a very career oriented woman. But then she had very little choice, right? She really had to step up and take care of the family. And she was the very first role model I had for a very strong, independent woman, extremely
mhm,
strong. So I think I got a lot of my outspokenness and strong will from her. She also, she's now retired, but for a very long time, she was a trainer and a
mhm.
consultant for the aviation industry. So she was a
Oh,
female breaking
wow.
barriers in aviation. So that was a big, I think, influence in what I do today. I very early on also, or I think quite early when I was in the student council in university, I was surrounded by a lot of amazing student leaders, and I really got exposed to a servant leader model and or I guess yeah, a framework of leadership.
Mhm,
Having been educated in a Jesuit university, so we were really always taught to put others above ourselves, be very service oriented, right? Have our values and our purpose at the core of what we do. So that really influenced me a lot. But in terms of a very specific leadership style, and I'm grateful you asked that, Marilyn.
mhm,
I would really love to talk more about what is now called feminine leadership, which is also
mhm,
called adaptive leadership, or high impact leadership, 21st century leadership. You can call it any number of ways. But at the
mhm,
core of it are feminist leadership frameworks and theories. Now, I will have to say that, and we can talk about this a bit more later. Feminist leadership doesn't mean, being activist, like hating men and going to war with, the other gender, etc. It's very, very far from that. So the
True.
feminist style of leadership is very open, very empathetic, very collaborative, also very creative and intuitive, and it's highly relational. So we can talk more about that. And I love it because it it comes very natural to me. I'm very much a kind of person who likes building community. I'm very much a democratic type of person and a
Mhm.
democratic type of leader. So I like consensus building. I believe that leadership and great ideas can come from anywhere. You don't need to have a title to step up. So those are
Mhm.
just some of the things about feminine leadership
Mhm.
that draw me to it, and that I live by. Um, so did I answer? I think I answered two questions. You'll have to refresh me on the third question.
Yeah, yeah, you've actually answered all. Generally, it's all about like um leadership, your influencer's favorite
Yes.
style on, and which like leads you to how you define leadership. So I guess it's really like so much of being able to serve others, right, and to take care of others. I mean, feminine leadership, I would say, is really so much around like taking care or nurturing your team, right? If I got
Mhm,
that correctly,
mhm.
aside from you mentioned around making them feel that they belong, and
Yes, it's very
also,
inclusive.
yeah,
Mhm.
inclusive, and it's all about building community, right? So I appreciate that. So I would believe that that's how you will also define your leadership as well, right?
Very much so.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing that with us. And I before I ask you the next question, I would like to invite those who are actually especially watching us live today to join us in this conversation. You can ask your question, and you can also like share with us what's your takeaway from the conversations that we're having right now, right? So the next question then is, you've shared with us from where you're coming from, and now from your experience in the corporate world, in startups, and now
Mhm.
working with both entrepreneurs as well as corporate leaders, what would you say would be the top three problems that they normally face?
That's also a really good question. I think one of the challenges that we now face, which I think has been heightened by the pandemic,
Mhm.
you might even consider it its own. It's also an emergency, right? In many situations, we do have a mental health. We do
Mhm.
have a mental health crisis, I think, and not because people today are less resilient or they're less strong, but I think the um, the over dependence on technology, on gadgets,
Mhm.
has in a way diminished real human authentic connections, right? So I think so mental health is a big issue, and you will see this in many corporations, and that's why we're really glad that mental health issues are now on the forefront. Many companies are now offering mental health leaves, right? Mental
Mhm.
health benefits, because people really need it, and the pandemic exacerbated that. When you feel alone, right, or helpless,
Mhm.
or you're grappling with a lot of things and you don't have enough support systems, that can be a
Exactly.
really big issue. So
Mhm.
connected to that, number two would be again the sense of disconnectedness.
Mhm.
Ironically, we're so connected to our gadgets, right? We're
Mhm.
able to connect to the world literally 24/7, but a lot of us still feel isolated and distant. And I think a lot of leaders in remote teams, they've had to learn how to handle this. How do you check up on team members, right? When you're working remotely, you don't see them face to face, you don't have any physical cues.
Exactly.
But the dispersed work setting. I love working from home, don't get me wrong. I love working from anywhere. But that also means we as leaders have to be more acutely tuned in to how our
True.
team is doing from a human perspective. I
Mhm.
think a third challenge would be the lack of psychological safety in a lot of companies. So, HR tracks employee engagement, of course, attrition,
True.
etc. But at the core of it, when no matter how much you spend on employee engagement, talent recruitment, DEI, you have your employee resource groups like your ERGs, if there is no sense of psychological safety in the workplace, if you feel there are so many microaggressions, or you're being threatened, or you just feel like it's not safe to be able to express your ideas or even to ask a question or to experiment, then that really leads to a lot of disengagement.
Mhm.
And again, it can circle back to the other challenges I talked about. So I think from a corporation or an organizational perspective, I would say those
Mhm.
three would be very critical issues that organizations face today.
Wow, thank you for identifying and even explaining each of these, right? And so I really appreciate, like, I mean, what some of the silver linings that we have received from having all this crisis, COVID and all, is really to have that much awareness around the mental health, how important it is, how you can actually handle all these crises, right, that we face. And again, because of what happened during the pandemic, where we can't even see each other, we can't even go out and all, and also there's disconnectedness. But interestingly, like what you've said, we're we're too busy with our devices, right? And so even before the pandemic, when gadgets like came about, right, like a lot of people became like more disconnected sometimes, like you
Yeah,
even
yeah,
spend time at home, right, having dinner
mhm,
together, but everyone is looking at their own phones.
exactly.
It is really like very disappointing. But at the same time, that's how it is. That's the trend now, right? Like a lot of
Mhm,
people are looking into their devices, the
yeah,
technology, etc. But how are we actually keeping that connections? And humans are made to be connected, right? We always
exactly.
long to that connection with the people that we are around. So I guess it's really so much more of how are we actually balancing that, right? So, and last but not the least, psychological safety. And I guess that's also again the reason why there's also mental health and disconnections, right? Because when people don't feel safe to speak up, to say what they want, their ideas, then they tend to like, okay, there's no safety here. I'll just go for my device, and like at least
Mhm,
my device understand me more with AI right now, right? Like it
mhm,
can even like predict, like, and even like measure or give you data on like, oh, these are the usual, so these are your favorites, so you can easily um like pull up all those things that you're spending time on, right,
yes,
in your device.
yes. Yep.
This is very interesting, but of course, obviously, we will not leave them with all these problems. We will do our best uh, to share with them like what they can do to balance it, and what other important skills that they must have in order um, to address all these problems that you've shared with us. But before you answer that question, hello, wow, Miss Nina Turol and Marilyn, thank you, Bless, for joining us live. And again, we would like to invite those who are watching us live to join us in this conversation. Say hi to us. Um, let us know your question or even your takeaway or what you're getting out of this conversation. So, it's time for you to answer that question. What's your important leadership capabilities that you must have in order to continue to lead effectively in this next normal, or whatever they want to call it, right? And how would you relate it in your own experience, in your own stories, or the work that you do right now?
Yeah. So remember earlier when I talked about feminine leadership, I talked about certain qualities. So first would be empathy. I think
Mm-hmm.
given how uncertain, right? So the world today is VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. You really don't know everything. None of us will have a very clear and precise roadmap for what's to
Mm-hmm.
happen. In 2020, none of us, or 2019, none of us thought that a pandemic would hit in 2020. And we didn't
True.
even know how long it would last. So I think the very first skill that every leader should should exercise and demonstrate and practice is empathy. And this doesn't mean sympathy, right? This doesn't mean taking pity on somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
but it really means being able to step into someone else's shoes, feeling what they
Mm-hmm.
feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your colleague has a lot of, for example, concerns at home, for example, your colleague is a single parent with a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids, what would that feel like? How do you support the colleague to do his or her best, right?
Mm-hmm.
While making sure that they're still able to do their jobs well. You're not making excuses for unprofessional behavior, but you are supporting them in a very human way. For example, but
Mm-hmm.
empathy also comes with certain other skill sets. So the
True.
empathy skill set, I believe and I've seen, comes hand in hand with listening.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very good at listening. As I mentioned
Mm-hmm.
earlier, you have to be attuned, like your senses have to be wider, open than usual. Looking out
Yeah.
for cues for what is not being said here, right?
Yes.
People will say things, people will type things, even in a Zoom meeting, they will say certain things, but what
Mm-hmm.
are the underlying messages that you have to take note of? And you have to also be quite perceptive and intuitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that also comes hand in hand with the skills of compassion
Mm-hmm.
and curiosity is very important. I
Mm-hmm.
think when people get to a leadership stage, we're sometimes we're trained to think we know the answers or that we should have the answers. But one of the characteristics and the traits and the skills that I love most is curiosity and exploration. Always be curious, always ask questions, right? For example, when the pandemic started, we did not know what on earth was going on. We knew there was a COVID-19 virus. We didn't know
Mm-hmm.
much else. So a lot of our experts went and they went into full discovery, right? Discovery,
Mm-hmm.
finding, problem solving mode. And we'll have to bring up that, for those of you who are interested to just take a look at some leadership case studies, it's been reported, it's been documented that during the pandemic, a lot of the countries that did better in dealing with the pandemic were actually countries run by female leaders. Why is that? Because they were very curious, they were data driven, they were very collaborative. They
Mm-hmm.
knew they did not have the answers. They
Mm-hmm.
did not turn the pandemic into a political issue. They knew it was a public health crisis. So they turned to the experts. They turned to the doctors. They turned to science. They knew that communities were struggling. So they also looked at what was going on in the communities. So as a leader,
Mm-hmm.
empathy would be very important, listening, but really curiosity, exploration, and collaboration is
Mm-hmm.
going to be very important moving forward. In a world where things are so uncertain, where things can change at any time, right? There now we now have another global conflict that's escalating. We really need to learn how to be able to go beyond labels,
Mm-hmm.
beyond political, religious, ethnic, etc. names and titles and all that, and really be able to connect with each other on a human to human level and say, there's so many other big problems. How can we work together to solve these problems?
Wow, I really love how you've identified all these important leadership skills and capabilities. And actually, there's a curious questions that's still in my mind because of this post I have actually read on LinkedIn last time, right? She mentioned about like empathy versus compassion, which I'm glad you both actually mentioned, right? And she
Mm-hmm.
said like empathy is actually not good because you're trying to feel what they feel, and sometimes it's causing like stress or
Mm-hmm.
negative emotions around us, right? And so that's why she said that we should not have really much of empathy, but really more towards compassion, because compassion is really about like love and really more on the positive. How can I help you to actually solve your problem? That's at least my understanding from what I I read. So I'm just curious to know what's your take between this empathy versus compassion, probably as an
Okay,
add-on
thank you.
question.
That's an interesting. It's the first time I've heard of them as like empathy versus compassion.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very religious person, so I'm not going to talk
Right.
about my faith. But I
Mhm.
remember in one of the retreats I went to, the root word of compassion is actually so compassion. So passion is really that point. I don't remember the Latin root word and all that, but uh, passion, right? When for Christians, for Catholics, passion, the passion of Jesus really also
Obviously.
meant the struggles carrying the
Mhm,
cross, right?
mhm,
The
mhm,
Calvary that went before that. But passion also means there's a lot of pain associated with passion. When you care so much for something, it really
mhm,
hurts. I think even from a non-religious people can relate to that. Sometimes when you're
mhm,
so passionate about something, you will care to the point of you won't sleep, you won't be able to eat. You will do anything for that passion, and it can be painful. And compassion actually means sharing in somebody else's pain. So to be honest, I don't think empathy and compassion are two different things. They're actually two sides of a
complementary, right?
coin, right? Because when you're empathizing with someone, you're walking in their shoes, and you're feeling their pain. Here's a very practical example. So I
Mhm,
noticed in a lot of the roads, it depends on which city you're in, but cities with cobblestones, for example,
mhm.
or pavers, I would say, oh, these cities were not designed for women wearing heels.
Yeah.
Because if you literally walk in a woman's shoes, right? A very practical example of empathy and compassion. If you
Mhm,
walk in a woman's stilettos
mhm.
and maybe wear a skirt and then try to bring your laptop or whatever it is, and then you're walking to your meeting or maybe walking, and then you're in cobblestones or in an area that's not so well paved, you would literally feel her pain, and you would understand why do women walk so slowly, right? Or
Mhm.
why and sometimes you think, oh, they're walking so slowly, etc., but it's because you can actually get injured walking in heels. And that's just a very small example. Again, try to
Mhm.
walk in the shoes of a pregnant woman, try to walk in the shoes of an elderly,
Mhm.
right? Who is
Right.
trying to get from point A to point B with very limited mobility. Try to walk in the shoes of a person with, disability. And you will literally feel the pain that they're feeling. Maybe not to the extent that they're feeling it day by day, but you will get a glimpse. So I
Right.
think that's what empathy and compassion would be for me. And they will literally go hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you because while I was thinking why versus why cannot empathy, like we've been hearing a lot of leaders sharing about like the importance of empathy, emotional intelligence, and all those stuff. Why not empathy, right? So again, it she because how she explained it is again, it's like you might get stressed around it,
Mhm.
or it's bringing like a lot of negative emotions as
Yes,
well. So it's
yes,
also, I think, like it's really so much of like how can you actually take care of others while you're taking care of yourself, having still that boundaries and balance, I guess, so that it will not affect you. Because yes, empathy, you're feeling how they feel, but it doesn't have to be like you take it on right on you and
That's true.
just be in that situation or in that emotion, right? Altogether, I guess it's how you actually have to like balance it, if I may
Mm-hmm.
say. And I really love like how you summarize this, because these are actually like, I would say, interconnected skills and capabilities that leaders must have, right? Because for you to be able to create that psychological safety,
Yeah.
which is a common problem that you've shared earlier, you have to know how to listen. You have to be curious, right? You have to and after you have that awareness around this and you get to listen, then how are we solving this? What are the datas
Mhm.
we have? How do we collaborate and work together to address all these problems that we're facing, right? So
Yep.
I really appreciate how you actually shared all these. And so, curiosity, collaboration is key, according to Bless. Definitely, right? We all agree
Definitely.
to that.
Yes.
And even the theme, like learning, leadership, and transformation, it has to happen that way, right? Every one
Mm-hmm.
of us gets curious, learn together, and then we collaborate to address all these problems that we face, right?
Yes, for
And
sure.
Sia, hello. I just saw this. I'm wrapping up time with Fam Bam will be midday. Thank you so much. She's actually based in the US, so I really appreciate that
Oh, wow.
you have joined us and left us with your warm message. Thank you, Sia.
Mm,
She's one of the speakers as well. We just ended our global summit, um, Recharge and In Charge, which is organized by my sister, Dr. Constance Leyland, with some of the amazing speakers, including Sia. These
amazing.
are some
Yes.
of my podcast friends as well. So thank you for dropping by. And so I really appreciate again these insights. And have we answered all our points or shared our points in our, so we've mentioned around feminine leadership, you defined it earlier. Why is it important? And I guess before I ask you the last question, um, I guess you have to give us more practical tips on practicing empathy. You've mentioned around empathy, and would you like to add anything more around adaptive feminine leadership, regardless of gender? Because I wanted to highlight this because
Yes.
sometimes some people
Yes.
think that feminine leadership is for women only. But I think this is the last thing that I would want you to share more of before I ask
Oh,
the
yeah,
last
of course.
question.
Thank you. So again, so feminine leadership is characterized by leadership that is very open, very relational, very collaborative, very inclusive, and it is the kind of leadership that is not coming from the top down. So there are
Mhm,
different theories of leadership, and there's like a strong man theory, right, where there is a
mhm,
single person who makes all the decisions in a very autocratic way.
mhm,
But for the feminine leadership model, which can be practiced by anybody, number one, it
mhm,
believes that leadership can be practiced by anyone. So you do not
mhm,
have to have the role, the title, the divine right, whatever, right? So anyone can step up to leadership, and
mhm,
leadership is also something that is practiced. You don't become it instantly. You don't inherit it. It's not a trait. It's something you develop. Okay. Number
mhm,
two, feminine leadership believes that leadership is also a process. So again, you learn, you grow. Sometimes you unlearn and you relearn, right? So what you're doing, Marilyn, in training and development and leadership development, that's very much within the lines of feminine leadership, because it believes that all of us have the capacity to learn and to grow. It's a process, right?
mhm,
And it also believes that leadership, in a way, is rooted in place, meaning you typically grow a community around you. And if you notice, a lot of the very effective leaders, or even,
mhm,
when you think of some of your favorite advocacies, whether you're
mhm,
advocating for sustainability, right, a a regenerative future, against climate change, you're advocating for sustainability, you're advocating for animal welfare, etc., you will realize that there is no single person leading that advocacy. Maybe somebody lit the fire, but soon many people are gathering around it, are speaking up, many people are, doing their share, and that is actually the example of a feminine kind of leadership that has blossomed when you have a movement, when you have an advocacy where, one match is lit, but that match lights other candles, lights other fires. It lights up the whole room. You're able to collaborate to work on solutions. So, how does somebody practice that? There are many practical things you can do on a day to day basis. So, again, number one is listen.
Mm-hmm.
We have two ears, one mouth, right? So, listen more than you talk. When you're in a team situation, I would like to do this usually. When in a team situation, I let my team members talk first. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, any ideas? Uh, you guys go ahead. Share your ideas first. Maybe I'll
Mm-hmm.
share mine last. It doesn't mean that because I'm last, it's my idea that gets implemented, but it means let's hear what everybody has to say. I don't want anyone to feel pressured that, because I spoke first, then my word is it. No, give everybody the chance to speak, build on other people's ideas, right? And then ask questions. What made you think that? Oh, that's an interesting perspective. I never thought of that. Or when you disagree, I actually have a different idea, but let's hear more about that. Where is that coming from? Maybe they have an experience you never got to experience, and that's why their perspective is different. So, again, be curious, ask questions, listen. Um, Also, I think we need to be comfortable with the fact that we could be wrong, and we could also be wrong in public, and it's okay,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just be open to asking other people for ideas and also asking questions, getting the data from elsewhere. We
Mm-hmm.
also have to practice sharing the load with other people. As leaders, we sometimes feel like we have to carry the burden all by ourselves, right? We know this. And women sometimes feel this in the workplace, then we feel it at home. You feel like you have to carry the burden. But actually, one essential leadership practice I think that we leaders need to do more of is to learn how to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one very professional way of doing it is to delegate, right? You don't ask for help, you delegate. Okay, so practice delegating and then trust the people you've delegated to that they can do a good job, right? And be there to coach, to mentor, to give feedback, but give people room to grow, right? So I think all of these things, there a lot of them are essential leadership practices, right? Listening, asking questions, being collaborative, being relational, etc. Learning how to delegate up, delegate down, delegate sideways, learn to work in teams. So all of these are quite common sense, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we forget because we feel the burden of leadership on our shoulders and we feel like we need to have the answers to everything. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is, we don't have all the answers. So the more that we're able to work with other people, the more effective we actually will be. Again, this pandemic, all the vaccines that were created, all of the solutions, they were never developed by just a single person or a single company or a single government. We saw for ourselves the impact of a tiny virus that pretty much changed the whole world and how we as an entire planet had to work together to solve it. And that's the same for organizations. That's actually even the same for families, right? So we have many different units and we just have to learn how to do that. And it takes regular practice to build up all of those different muscles.
Yes, very true. I really appreciate you explaining to us how feminine leadership can be practiced on a daily basis. And
Yeah,
again,
that's
it
one.
it's the same conversation I had with Yati just I think a week ago, where we mentioned about it starts with you. It starts with your family, right? I mean, being in your family is really taking on leadership as well,
Yeah.
especially if you're a parent, right? It's not really you just deciding, but also taking into consideration what your children has to say, how they feel, right? And that helps them to grow and to learn from the experiences that they have. You can't just like, oh no, because like this. Again, like what you've mentioned, you have to listen to those different ideas, perspective, because what your experiences might be different from the other's perspective or experiences that they have. And if you know how to listen and be curious about other people, you will be surprised how much you can actually learn from everyone and anyone at any time, right?
Yep.
So I,
Yep.
I really appreciate how you shared how we can practice. And again, like what you've also highlighted, it's a journey for us to take as well. And this is also the reason why, I mean, I have been doing this interview, because we don't hear a lot of these conversations really on a regular basis, especially in the workplace, right? So it's really having that, again, practice, that journey, that contribution that we can actually take to anyone, or bring to
Mhm.
anyone on the table, right? Through this simple work that we are actually doing right now. So I
That's
really appreciate that once again. And so that
Marian,
leads.
sorry, may
Mm,
I add just one more thing? Because I realized,
please,
in a
please
lot of
go.
the work that we do, again, yes,
Mhm,
we need to be collaborative, we need to listen, etc. But I think sometimes you still end up feeling alone, right? You still, especially when you're the higher up you go in an organization, you really tend to feel alone. So it's
mhm,
important for leaders to build community,
true.
right? So whether you're inside an organization and you build your own safe spaces in your own communities inside, or you as
Mhm,
a leader, you need to try to build a community around you. They say it takes a village to raise a child. I think it also
yes.
takes a village to raise an entrepreneur. It takes a village to raise a leader, right? We all need a village around us. So I think wherever we are in our professional and
Mhm,
personal journeys, it's always important to find the right people to surround us with, so that as you're journeying, as you're practicing, things aren't going to be perfect. You're going to fail. There's sometimes it's going to be, you're going to hit really rough patches. You need people who have your back all
true.
around you. So you
Mhm.
really also have to be very careful about the people you curate around you, the community you build, and building community has to be intentional.
Yes, I really love that additional comment that you've shared. And so, but that leads me to my next or last question, which is, if you have a magic wand and you can use it, what will you do with it?
Oh wow. And this would segue to the work that we're doing at Imaginable Impact. If I could have a magic wand, I would eliminate all the possible barriers that keep women from stepping up into their own power. And we have different kinds of barriers. So some of the barriers are external. So I would eliminate all the external barriers, like gender discrimination at work. There's a gender pay gap. There are a lot of gender inequities around the world in pretty much every industry. So I would eliminate that, so that women actually have no external barriers to, they can find they can get whatever job they want. If they want to be an engineer, they want to be a mechanic, they want to be in manufacturing, in construction, in energy, in technology, right? Women surgeons, whatever. So for them to be able to take any field, excel in that field, choose if they want to have a family or not, but be able to really step up to their fullest potential. That's number one. But the second aspect of that is I would eliminate the internal barriers as well. Because
Mhm,
whether we acknowledge it or not, whether we realize it or not, we come with a lot of internal pressure, baggage, programming. And we're Asians. We love being Asians. We love our families. But there's been a
mhm,
lot of cultural programming about what a woman's place is, right? And for the longest time, and even in some cultures today, the woman is just in the kitchen. Or if you're not the eldest son, what's going to become of you? Or if you're not married, what's going to become of you? And that has impacted us. Many times we have been hesitant to use our own voices. We have not voiced out our needs. We have not spoken out for ourselves. We have allowed other people to trample our own barriers, right? Many times opportunities were given to us. We ourselves did not take those opportunities because we felt we were not good enough. We
Mhm.
have intense displays of imposter syndrome. We second guess ourselves. We are our worst critics. I mean, women who are, right, women, even men actually, who are listening here, can you believe that? That sometimes we can be our worst inner critics and our worst saboteurs, right? So if
True.
I can eliminate all of those barriers, wow, imagine how empowered we would all be and how much less baggage we're carrying, right? Imagine we can actually fly without carrying all the overweight baggage on our shoulders.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Nina. And it's really amazing that, um, you are right about that, right? But the worst barrier we can ever make in our lives is actually the barrier within us, right? It's us. Nobody will be able to stop you except you. So if
Yes.
you dream, just go on and live it, right? Stop dreaming and live. Start living it, right? And I
Yeah.
really appreciate. I mean, at least with the work that you do, definitely. Like you are already like without a magic wand is already like making this happen by empowering more women to eliminate this barrier internally or externally, right? So I really appreciate you with that. And again, thank you so much, Bless, for joining us, for engaging with us. Thank you. And she agrees with that. Right. So thank you so much. Nina, is there anything more that you'd like to invite our audience with or leave our audience with before we actually end this conversation?
Yes, thank you so much, Marilyn. So, just a couple of things. One is do try to practice how to be, more empathetic, more inclusive in your own environment, and be more collaborative. But the second thing, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Um, Next week, well, if you're listening live, no, so on October 26th, my company Imaginable Impact is organizing our first ever Founder Forum for female founders and startup leaders. And this is an open event that both men and women and all genders can attend. But the focus is on championing investability of Filipina founders, since this will be held in Manila. And what's important about this is that we do know that there's a very dismal gender pay gap, a gender, sorry, investing gap in startups. Women are able to access very, very, very little, just less than 2% of venture capital.
Mhm.
But what Founder Forum and what we at Imaginable Impact are aiming to do is to improve the investability of women founders so that they have more chances at different kinds of capital that they will need for their business. So the Found Her Forum brings together top leaders from the Philippine ecosystem, startup ecosystem, from startup founders to leaders to investors, to talk about why do we need to invest in female founders and what makes female founders investable. So if you're a female founder, or you're on the investor side, or you're just curious to learn more about this space, I encourage you to go to imaginableimpact.com, where you will be able to find more details and tickets to the event. So that's October 26th, 2 to 5 p.m. At KMCSM North EDSA here in Quezon City in Metro Manila in the Philippines. Thank you so
Wow.
much for this opportunity to also share this information, Marilyn.
Mhm. You're welcome. You're most welcome. And I look forward to attend hopefully the next one. I'm in
Yes.
Singapore right now, but during this state, I will be in Cebu. So I'll be missing out on this. But again, we're inviting everyone, especially female founders who would like to take advantage of this community as well and learnings from this upcoming event on October 26th. And after this conversation, please feel free to add into the comments more details, the links, and everything that
Yes,
they have
I
to
will.
be able to
Mm,
participate. Yeah, especially those who are actually based in the Philippines. And
mm.
I also wanted to thank you. I've been like receiving quite an overwhelming messages on, especially on LinkedIn. I didn't realize it's my 9th year anniversary in doing my business. So thank you
Wow!
so much for those.
Congratulations, lucky nine.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I'm on my lucky nine now, and hopefully I
Yes,
can really like take this further to a more sustainable business, because again, like we're here to solve problems, to serve
yes,
others, right? So hopefully
yes,
we can make it like a continuous effort, and like a business that we can really call business, where like everyone is thriving, not only us but also the clients that we work with and the partners that we work with. So thank you so much, especially those who actually sent me like individual messages to greet me on
thank you so
their
much, everybody.
congratulatory anniversary. Thank you. And for those who are in Manila, I'll be there on the 19th and 20th. I probably have 2 or 3 more slots to meet up. If you're ready to find out how we can help you on training, coaching, and consulting, I'll be in Manila on the 19th and 20th, and 23 to the 26th in Cebu as well. I'll be attending PMAP and looking forward to meet a lot
I'm
of amazing
jealous.
people
I'm
in that
very jealous.
networking opportunity. Yes. It's a networking and a learning opportunity again, once again for me. So, yeah. So, thank you again so much. It's been a meaningful and an empowering conversation with you, Nina. I really appreciate this conversation, and thank you for taking time to have this with me today. And with that, I would like to thank those who are watching us live and those who will watch the replay later. And again, let's help each other collaborate and create more communities, to create more opportunities to make our world a better place to live in, because we can. And remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. And with that, we would like to leave you with this quote, that if your actions create a legacy that inspires others to do more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are an excellent leader. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you again, Nina. Bye for now
Thank
and
you
see
so
you
much,
next week.
Marilyn. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.